I just wanted to come on here today to apologize for using the M word. There's no place in our society, especially for homo inferiors, to be using such hateful terminology. I've also sold off my Sentinel collection. I honestly had no clue about the history of them. I just thought they looked cool. I have even visited Krakoa and the Museum of Mutant History, and I am now educated. And nowadays, I don't even vomit when I see Morlocks. What? They're ugly! You dare call that thing human? How do you stand for courage, justice, and integrity, and they got you saying all this? I'm kidding, I don't actually think Cap is racist. Or do I? Let's find out. Captain America is a strange character because he has changed a lot as the political landscape of America has also changed. You introduce a minority allegory in the X-Men, and this throws a wrench into things that many talented writers have tried to solve. Over time, much like Superman, Captain America has less to do with representing the US government and more to do with fighting against general evil. As these changes happen over time, you get some weird spots in history where Cap might sound like Uncle Sam, but instead of recruiting for World War II, he needs help fighting those uppity X-Men. Now, it's important to realize that X-Men are far from paragons of goodness and innocence. That's what makes them interesting. They have flawed personalities who lead their team. They try and try again to get statehood and freedom, and in that pursuit of freedom, they may do things that ruffle some feathers. However, when we analyze these crossovers with a world politics lens, looking at the mutants as we would a real-life country, we can begin to understand why Cyclops or any other mutant leader might be anxious and defensive towards the greatest military on planet Earth. But before we get into our political bag with the only real piece of evidence that is AVX, let's go through some very real and very authentic comic panels that truly display Cap's racism.
Little what? Go ahead and say it, Cap. Mutie.
Now, it is time for some evidence that my team of experts has validated as 100% official Marvel published works. Just trust me. Now, I said I would hold off on AVX until we do our little World Politics 101 analysis, but I gotta jump straight into the evidence here because it is damning. Here we have a panel straight from AVX, the mainline comic, no side stories here. Cap says to Tony, "Ugh, just listen to it, Tony. How can anyone call that music? I'm telling you, mutant culture will be the downfall of this country." I think the case is closed here, guys. I mean, I knew this comic would be bad, but goddamn, going straight for the rap music isn't real music approach here, Cap. I knew you were an old timer, but not a get off my lawn Clint Eastwood type. Here we have another panel, the fabled meeting of Captain Fascist and our glorious mutant leader, the X-Man Cyclops. After pissing on their country, Cap says this. Dude, how are you doing, Gambit? It's been far too long. I'm Cyclops. Really? Oh, sorry about that. You people all look the same to me. Jesus Christ, Cap. I mean, I thought it was blatant before, but you really took the gloves off here. Not to mention how disrespectful it is to piss on their land. I mean, they got endangered otters that live there. Furthermore, Cyclops and Gambit look nothing alike. Now on to our last and most damning piece of evidence from the very real and official AVX. So after the Avengers realize the Phoenix is coming for a mutant, they get Captain America to speak with Wolverine in order to figure out which mutant. Well, we know it's coming for a ginger. You see, now that's just ignorant. Not every mutant has a red hair fetish, and you're perpetuating a harmful stereotype. Oh please, we both know you muties Oh, whoa. So my producers actually failed to tell me that these are all doctored images from a parody comic, so disregard that, but I promise the next pictures are totally real and authentic and not taken out of context. This is Miss Marvel, one of my favorites and more recent characters in Marvel. Now, she is suffering from a disease called MCU synergy. Only she is not the only one affected by it. And I knew Disney was bending the knee to that fat fuck, I just did not realize how low they would go. However, when it comes to Kamala Khan, she is now a mutant. And you know what that means, we gotta get Captain America to give her the initiation, aka a hate crime. Steve? My friends call me Steve. You and those murderous little muties are no pals of mine. You don't understand the label you just accepted, kid. I'm actually not into labels right now. You're a cancer. This path is meant for those who are dedicated to the triumph of good over evil, for those who fight in the name of righteousness. Damn, Cap dropping the hard M there. I mean, I know you and the X-Men aren't always on the best of terms, but I thought there was some mutual respect there, not to mention calling them a cancer. I mean, is this Captain America or Captain Hydra? Oh, what's that? It's taken out of context. It's a dream sequence. Okay. My bad, y'all. I made some mistakes here, but who hasn't? Lay off, you dirty flat scans. Here we have our glorious queen, Psylocke, the baddest bitch in the X-Men, argue with a wall. As she fights against the classic anti-mutant bigots, guess who appears? Easy, Psylocke. You. Why am I not surprised? The great Captain America protecting the oppressors of mutants. Let's make it a fair fight. Or the rest of the Avengers. So as you can see here, Cap does not care about mutants. He's one of those centrist assholes that think it's righteous to protect the oppressors from the oppressed, but not the other way around. So, case closed. Right, guys? What do you mean show the whole page? Oh, damn. So Cap actually helps her in this fight against Orcus, and even further, he wants her to join his team. I think I might have been swindled by the X-Men fans a little bit here. I was going to use this page with Squirrel Girl and Cap, but I think it might have been taken out of context. Now, X fans have a vendetta against the Avengers for sticking beside the most evil hero in Marvel history, the Scarlet Witch. But stay tuned, guys. I will be bringing her ass to the courtroom very soon, and she is actually an evil person. So much so, the Avengers barely like her. I mean, in the prequel to the AVX, she gets told to fuck off by Vision, and it's low-key deserved. If it's not obvious enough, I absolutely hate this woman. While I get why X fans are so bored nowadays without our beloved Krakoa and Hickman dropping out, we gotta stop taking shit out of context. I mean, in the world, mutants do that enough already, with the whole mutant versus mutate debate. On a serious note, this is how X-Men fans see Cap, through a distorted lens of parody comics and panels taken out of context. However, X fans do have one strong point to make, and that is in the actual AVX story, not the parody comic I was shown before. So without further ado, let us get to the Avengers vs. X-Men comic that ruined fans' perception of Steve forever. AVX is a story about people broken and battered after one extinction level event after another. I mean, Cyclops has been fighting this fight since he was a teenager, manipulated by his bald mom, and beaten up by a super dripped out dad. Trust me guys, this is canon.
I want to Duke Dennis baby mamas. Yes, I am.
Oh my God, no, she's not!
I want to be known for me, being me, but not having a kid with Duke Dennis.
Check. She's trolling right now.
100% canon. Just trust me. He has learned to always be on guard as a mutant in a man's world, so when the all-powerful Phoenix is set to come to Earth, the embodiment of life, death, and rebirth, Scott of course sees this as an opportunity to bring back what they've lost. Now at the beginning, Scott knows the Phoenix is going to go for Hope, since of course the Phoenix loves redheads, and he's been training her to fight for a while now, so that Hope can harness this energy and do a lot of good. Before the Phoenix can even come, the entire Avengers extended roster come in on their helicarrier and their ugly little token mutant ready to fight about something that hasn't even happened yet. I mean seriously, what law has Cyclops broken? Furthermore, when Cap and him meet, Cap wants Hope Summers since Wolverine snitched on them. Mind you, that little girl is basically Scott's granddaughter at this point. Scott of course is not going for it. What crime has she committed? What right does he have to tell the mutants how to govern themselves? I mean, no one breaks into Stark Tech and tells Tony to stop making giant destructive robots that sometimes turn evil and cause insane events. But you know how it is, rules for thee, but not for me. The mutants are kept on a short leash, since the previous Phoenix event was incredibly terrifying. Let's look at the big picture here. This comic seems to be influenced by a combo of the Minority Report with the whole arresting someone before they commit a crime, and a mix of the invasion of Iraq, invading a smaller, less powerful country because you're afraid of them having weapons of mass destruction. Only in this case, the Avengers and the United States are actually right, and not being manipulated by that guy. So in the point of view of the X fans, this is a highly immoral act, and we're just on issue 1. If you skip ahead, you'll see that after the Phoenix comes, it is split up into different X-Men and they do some serious good. Much like how a smaller country might be working with nuclear technology, but they might also just be creating a power plant, something benevolent. Now please do me a favor and try and forget the rest of this comic, or else the argument will fall apart very quickly. This is simply how X fans see this predicament. Let's look at it from the other point of view of Avengers fans. AVX is one of those comics that is widely misunderstood. People constantly taking things out of context, exaggerate small moments, and overall just being disingenuous in order to make some hot takes about characters they barely read. Now, when we look at the AVX storyline from the Avengers point of view, we start to realize that this is a bit more complex than before. The Avengers are no stranger to fighting quote-unquote good guys, even their own members, so when it comes to the X-Men, there is a precedent set. The X-Men, while being good guys 99.9% of the time, make choices that scare the Avengers. Likely the most terrifying of powers the mutants wield is the Phoenix. The scariest part is they have little control over it. It seems to be more of a parasitic relationship and not something that has mutual benefits. I mean, how many times have we seen Jean Grey threaten to air this bitch out the minute that Phoenix starts whispering in her ear? So when they get credible intel that the Phoenix is coming back, they have to stop its problem before it starts. When they arrive and talk with the X-Men, Cap is just trying to get hope to a doctor or scientist or someone to study them and prevent the Phoenix from taking over her body. I mean, it's not fun to have your brain hijacked by some universal entity of life or whatever. Now, should he have simply requested to speak with Hope first? Sure, but the level of anxiety he must feel, I can excuse the rudeness. Now, Scott is essentially Hope's guardian, and he acts on her behalf, telling him no. But Steve, and more importantly Wolverine, know this isn't the protective leader Scott, but the power-hungry Scott. And Cyclops himself admits this on another page. This is like trying to wrangle a flamethrower from a toddler. They're messing with forces they can barely understand. I mean, to be so arrogant that you think you can wield the Phoenix's power without any negative consequences is insane. No one can do that, except of course for Jean Grey. She's just like that. So Steve sees a man traumatized since he was a teen, been through a dozen extinction level events and then some, is now power hungry and trying to rewrite history. Of course he's going to fight. This sounds a lot like someone else. Listen, the law barely matters in comics, and here's a fun fact. All heroes are criminals. You can't break into someone's house to look for evidence. That is illegal. You can't invade Latveria to fight Doom whenever you get the hunch he's doing something bad. That is also illegal. And for the X-Men, you can't just destroy a company's building because you think they might be concocting some anti-mutant weapons. That's all sorts of illegal. The law barely matters in comics, so stop it with this. They're violating the mutant statehood. They have their own autonomy, yada yada yada, all that nonsense. Steve sees a problem and he fixes it. Now what's even more validating is, of course, they have trouble with the Phoenix Force. After it gets split amongst the Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus, Magic, and for some reason, Namor. Why the fuck would you give the Phoenix Force to Namor? That guy is barely considered a hero. He is one step removed from Doctor Doom, and no X-Men in their right mind would give him the powers of the Phoenix. So of course Namor does what he does best, and that is crashing the fuck out. Flooding Wakanda to say what's up to this old lady T'Challa, of course. So the arrogance and ego of Cyclops of course is the downfall of them, causing everything to crumble, just like Captain America thought. He was never trying to tell Scott how to govern, just that the Phoenix is beyond our control, unless of course you're Jean Grey. Now after all of this, you'd think that Scott and Steve are cold and distant, but no, they actually like each other. Captain America is a really wholesome dude overall, and after Scott ages up a bit and goes to therapy, he gets pretty well rounded as well. So now let's go through all of the wholesome Cap and the X-Men moments. Cyclops and Captain America have had a lot of ups and downs over the years, but it's important to realize where it all comes from. Here we can look at their first encounter. Charles Xavier sends his teenagers to fight against some evil dude. It doesn't matter. The point is, the Avengers are also there to fight the same dude. Now Xavier, without explaining the why of it all to Cyclops, tells him to stall and prevent the Avengers from finding their foe. Now we know as the reader that Xavier has good reason, but of course in all superhero comics they have to have a misunderstanding and then fight like always. I mean, even Tony is tired of this cliche that heroes have to fight and then realize they're on the same side and make up. He even makes a pretty good joke about it with his quip on the Fantastic Four's encounter with them previously. Now before Xavier can explain to Scott that if they harm the evil dude, his heart rate being stopped or changed in any way will cause a bomb to go off, doing God knows how much damage. Before this is communicated, Thor, of course, starts fighting, since he's tired of them beating around the bush, and the battle begins. This is almost every negative interaction with Scott and Steve: misunderstanding, manipulation by Xavier, and simply acting out of fear. If we look at the moments of calm and peace when the two men can actually have dialogue together, it is a completely different story. Captain America respects the shit out of Cyclops. He sees a boy thrusted into a world full of hate and bigotry, and still tries to do the right thing at the end of the day. Steve is a man who has been manipulated, abused, taken advantage of, and so much worse, yet is still an impeccable leader to the mutant people. Now, I won't sugarcoat it. It's definitely true Cyclops has had some regrettable moments here and there, but so does Cap, and he recognizes that we aren't all perfect. This panel does a good job of describing their relationship. Look, Scott, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I hope you know I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and the X-Men. You'll forgive me if I ask you to cut to the chase. I don't know exactly what you're doing, but I know you can't keep doing it, Scott. This shows the exchange we usually see with Cap and Scott when they're on the outs. Scott is anxious that someone is again going to take from his people, and it's all to him to prevent that. Cap is sympathetic, but stern, and he knows what he has to do, but he doesn't want to fight about it. For a more conflicting exchange, let's look at this page. So, in this comic, Cyclops just stopped Hope Summers from assassinating someone and then got shot in the eye himself. In the next issue, he turns over some mutants that the X-Men has had in custody who committed some crimes. Cap and Scott then have this exchange. Impressive work, Cyclops. Why do I sense a but? But my intel said you had other prisoners. Dark Beast, Banshee, Hope? Your intel is wrong. You sure? You want to bring our soldiers inside to ransack our house? You know, this only works if we trust each other, right, Scott? I just turned in my fellow mutants over to you with my trust that they won't end up experimented on by our government, or worse. I am complicit in anything untoward that happens to these mutants under your watch. So this trust you keep talking about, it feels an awful lot like a one-way street. Now, Scott of course has plenty of reason to distrust Cap, not because he thinks Captain America is going to experiment on these mutants, but that he might not be privy to all of the facets of the US government. I mean, how many stories have we heard of some shadowy, evil Black Ops lab in S.H.I.E.L.D. or something? Cyclops is being a good leader to the mutants here by standing his ground, but a bad friend to Steve by not giving him grace. Now, Steve is confused, because he sees the government as an entity that will also protect mankind. Is he idealistic and naive? Sure. But most of the government is either indifferent or friendly with mutants, so it's not like he's totally wrong. So he says this. You don't think of this as your country anymore, Scott? I'm a mutant, Steve. Any country I ever had has been taken from me long ago. I'm sorry you see it that way. I'm sorry you don't. Scott is sorry that Steve doesn't see the very horrible history that this country has had with mutant kind. The mere existence of Sentinels should be enough for him to understand why Scott does not believe in America. Steve follows up with this. I've always respected you, Scott. What you've been through, it's more than I think I could handle. What's this? Me, driving down the other side of the road. I believe in what you're doing, getting rid of problems that your people will be blamed for. This is a big one. Steve is directly challenging Scott's assumption that their mutual trust is a one-way street, since he is now choosing to trust Scott and leave. Mirage says this to Scott as Cap leaves. Wow, do you trust him? I don't trust anyone that isn't us. This is a great example of the tumultuous relationship they have. Steve wants so badly to be on good terms with Scott, and Scott just wants to feel safe. When you wear the flag of a country that has designed and deployed murder bots to kill all his friends, I can't be upset that he's fearful. However, what's even more damning for Scott is the fact that he just lied to Steve. If you read this run, you know that Steve's intel was correct, and Havoc says as much to Cyclops. Now, I can't completely blame Scott for this. They see mutant problems as theirs to solve, but what happens when you take Scott away from the position as leader of the X-Men and simply have him being a man? Here is a great excerpt that really displays what the relationship could be and is sometimes like. In Uncanny X-Men The Heroic Age, we see Scott venture to the Savage Land for a much-needed vacation. Of course, a vacation for Cyclops is fighting dinosaurs. As he gets blindsided by one, arrows come flying from behind him and into the dinosaur's body. Of course, this is Captain America saying hi to Scott. They exchange pleasantries and Cap tells Scott why he came here, and that is truly just the talk. Scott explains he's here to relax, and Cap talks to him about how hard his job as a leader is, how Cyclops is trained for the role. He asks him, "What kind of man are you? I mean, what kind of leader are you? Where are you going? Where are you taking these folks of yours?" Scott tells him that's why he came out here, to figure all that out. Cap then just puts his cards on the table. Come into the light. Cap talks about how hard the X-Men have had it, but when they save the world for everyone to see, it makes more and more humans less bigoted and creates a safer world for mutants. Cyclops hesitates, saying, "Cap, sir, I hated and feared, you know? That's us, that's mutant kind." Scott thinks the cycle will never end, and is unsure if coming into the light will change anything. Cap is honest and says this, "It was, and it still will be for a while. But now is the time, Scott, and you're the guy to do it." Cap believes truly that Scott Summers is the X-Men. He is the golden boy, who can bring mutant kind to heights unheard of, who can bring peace. Cap talks about not caring what a hero looks like. A hero is a hero, and now is the time. Scott is still unsure, remembering all of the horrible times he faced, and he says, "I don't even know where to start." Cap of course does, and the next page has Scott Summers receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom, thus bringing him into the light as a public American hero. This is exactly what Cap is all about. He knows this country has not been fair to all its people, but he still fights for the American dream, a country that is fair, just, and free. From time to time, he and the Avengers might fight the X-Men, but he does not hate them. Now, even though I'm sure the majority of you guys are convinced at this point, I have the most damning piece of evidence that without a doubt proves that Cap was never racist. So let's go back in time to the X-Men vs. the Avengers issue 4, where Magneto does the classic Magneto thing and fights for mutant kind in the most destructive way possible. The Avengers fight him, but Magneto gets to unleash his anti-mutant ray on Cap in order to get him on his side. Magneto thinks if he can simply make everyone not hate mutants, they will all simply agree that his methods and plan are the most logical and sound. That doesn't happen, of course. Instead, Magneto instructs Cap to speak his mind, and Cap tells him, "Ain't shit changed. I still believe everything I said I believed in," essentially proving without a doubt that Cap has never harbored any hatred for mutants, which any fan who has read his solo stuff knows. Now, Captain America might argue with the methods folks choose, but he fights for freedom and justice for all, inhuman, mutant, or moleman, it does not matter. This revelation causes Magneto to feel such shame that he realizes that humans and mutants need to start trusting each other in order to move forward as a society. What's even crazier is this gets Magneto to surrender himself to the Avengers, as Magneto is no longer filled with his righteous fury after realizing all of his presumptions about the Avengers are wrong. He is deflated and looks as such. While Cap is proven to never have any prejudice feelings against mutants, that doesn't mean there aren't flaws within him, especially when we look at some strange double standards. One thing a lot of people bring up is how the X-Men deserve a lot of shit thrown their way simply for using quote-unquote child soldiers. I mean, the X-Men at the very start were little teenagers, given up by their parents because they were mutants. Xavier tells his parents they're going to a school, which is partially true, but imagine finding out your kid, instead of at a boarding school, is fighting giant robots and dodging deathly laser blasts. I would be a little pissed at the very least. So people take this weird predicament where Xavier manipulates and trains these kids into soldiers to fight for mutant rights, and then they think that Captain America has the moral ground to judge. The only problem here being that Captain America has essentially done a lot of the same things. If you are an MCU fan only, you're probably confused and wondering what I'm talking about. Bucky and Cap were both grown men when they joined the military. Wrong. Bucky in the comics, the original comics, is 16 when he enlists, maybe younger depending on the run, but nonetheless underage. What's interesting is that it wasn't uncommon for 16-year-old men to enlist with their parents' permission, so Cap taking him to war isn't the biggest problem. The biggest issue is that Captain America brings him along countless secret missions, and in the army, most 16-year-olds did menial tasks like handling weaponry, cooking, cleaning, maybe some medic work if they needed someone as an assistant. No one else was going up against the Red Skull himself, nobody besides Bucky. Essentially, Cap does the same thing that Xavier did, only Bucky is way too eager, so I blame him a little less. And when it comes to Xavier and the X-Men, the kids are more emotionally and ideologically diverse. not all of them are super stoked about fighting for their lives every week. Now this little hang up Cap has really irks me because it could be so great if only a few changes were made. Now Captain America is an idealistic guy. He fights for his ideals in a way very few can without losing themselves. He stays true to his values all the time. Now when it comes to superhero comics, a no-kill rule is not really the standard. That really only became a thing recently. And in my humble opinion, all it is a convenient way to keep your best villains alive. Now Cap canonically in every era has killed, but in wartime. Some people draw this line as an important distinction, but I don't think it's so simple. I don't want to delve into my political analysis bag here too much, but you have to wonder what it says about us. That we are okay with murder as long as the government says so, and they declare war. I mean, do we treat cops who kill the same way we treat superheroes who kill? And I'm breaking this up for a good reason. It's because no one would blame Cap for killing Nazis. Truly, it's a public service we need nowadays. However, what if they go by another name? Suddenly, it muddies up an easy solution. Now, let's talk about Wolverine, someone who's probably killed more people than any hero in the Avengers. Wolverine has been fighting for over 100 years, in every major war and even between wars. He has been manipulated, brainwashed, cloned, etc. However, our Wolverine, he kills, even when it doesn't seem to be the only solution. So tell me why Cap is so buddy-buddy with a guy who kills outside of wartime, somebody who hurts and maims people who might not even be the villain he paints them out to be. However, when it comes to Punisher, someone who is also traumatized like Logan, someone who has also been used and abused, when he kills criminals, which I'm not advocating for, mind you, Punisher is a bad guy for this, Captain America treats this guy worse than Ultron. All I'm saying is there is a huge double standard when it comes to the no-kill rule, and it makes these stories less believable, especially when you factor in how many times other Marvel characters have killed. Okay, so that was a lot. Those 2 points about child soldiers and the no-kill rule are small critiques that really are up to the writers to iron out. You could simply make Bucky and Cap around the same age like in the movies to fix that first one, and you could also just make Wolverine be a hero who injures but doesn't kill anyone that isn't evil personified, aka a Nazi, mutant bigot, whatever. I think the medium of comics is interesting because it allows for stories to be told and retold over decades and decades in the same way Old Mythos was. However, this time around we have little snapshots in time with each issue, able to see how our culture and identity as Americans changes. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where we had the Comics Code Authority, and we've been able to do a lot without it. Captain America has definitely suffered as a result of the more conservative culture of the past. If he was able to be written then like he is today, he would not have a single question of his beliefs. While some X-Men writers like to invoke a more conservative viewpoint and Boy Scout attitude with Cap, he's fundamentally a revolutionary hero, accepted during a wartime, but not as much in modern times. Let me know what you think of Cap. I always saw him in this positive light, but I think it's funny to slander heroes. However, people have taken this joke and ran with it like it's the truth. Next video will probably be every time Batman has killed, which will cover some older comics where Batman kills either directly or indirectly. I'll do a poll for the video after that. I have some funny ideas like the trial of Scarlet Witch. Let me spoil that one. She will be found guilty. She's an evil creature. I'm going to work on the Discord a bit more and let you guys know how that's going, but alrighty y'all, peace.